Hello, we are live, ladies. We are having a conversation with Sharon Maureen today, and we are going to be talking about something that I think is a hot topic and something that women, I think, comes up a time and time again, and that's about worthiness. So, ladies, comment in the comments if that even relates. If you've ever thought about that word worthiness, if you've put yourself down, we're going to go into all sorts of stuff and what that means and how it shows up for you and what are you feeling and all those kind of good things. But first, let's introduce Sharon. Sharon, you've been part of our community. You were part of our Being Brave book. You are now part of our magazine where you can also find this resource. And so just tell the ladies a little bit about you and how you came to be doing what you're doing.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and my journey is a long one, like everybody's. We start at birth and we evolve, and now I'm almost 67 years old. So there's a long story, but in the gist of it, I would say that I have gone through the hard stuff of life, abusive upbringing, the loss of a child, a challenging complicated marriage, entering into midlife, building a business that has suffered during COVID, now dealing with a husband that has dementia. So I've been through the thick of life, and through all of that, it evolved into what I do now. And that's a life coach in a couple different ways. I am a life coach at the local senior center where I do enhanced wellness coaching. So I'm a motivational and accountability coach there. And then I have my own private practice where I incorporate all my modalities, hypnotherapy, I'm a Reiki master, healing codes, stone medicine, energy healing, whatever the divine decides to channel through me, that's what I open myself to.
Yeah. And you are a source of wisdom. You always, whenever we chat, you have some little golden nuggets for us. So I'm excited to see what comes out of our conversation today. And one of the things I think I'm just loving is walking through, because we actually have a resource that we can share with women. And yours is it's about worthiness. And you start out by saying it's not a mindset. It's an energetic frequency. And I really like that. It's a different perspective on worthiness. So one of the things, before we kind of get into talking about worthiness, what do you see comes up for most women when they hear that word worthiness? How does that show up in women's lives? What are kind of some of the just some kind of the qualities that come through that we think we aren't worthy?
Well, as I mentioned, just some of the phases that I've gone through in my life, women go through phases. And at each phase of life, I see that there are measurements of accomplishment, of doing, that we put our worthiness into, and we judge ourselves as worthy based upon the performance of each phase. So when I talk about frequency, it is how do we bypass the performance mentality and embody the intrinsic vibration that we are worthy, period.
Right. Because, I think sometimes, and I think you're so right that we equate worthiness with success, whether it's financial success as a mother, as a business person, climbing up the ladder, corporate, whatever those things are. And in our relationships too, I think that shows up a lot. Maybe it's things that we've learned. We've put ourselves down so we don't think we're worthy to have a good relationship, all these different things, how it can show up. But and it's just so like a checkbox. And then you hear about, well, we are worthy just because we are, but that's just kind of you can hear that, but if you can't feel it, if you can't embody it, then that worthiness thing just still kind of, it's like, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve it or whatever. All those things kind of swirl around a lot.
Well, I think it comes to understanding frequency. And as we evolve with our understanding of emotional intelligence, quantum physics, the mind, heart, body, gut connection, we are now realizing that there are hurts. So I'm going to get a little bit scientific here. You know, there is literally a vibration, and emotions have vibration. Our brain has the pineal gland and the RAS system, which is the reticular activating system. The heart, excuse me, we now know has a vibration that talks to the body. So when we begin to understand that we're no longer just a thought process, we are truly an embodied frequency, a vibration that when we take certain, dare I say, disciplines or decided actions to come in alignment with that frequency, we can begin to know it in our bodies. And it will show up, excuse me, in areas. For example, you walk into a room and you're very anxious and you're in your head and you're a little bit nervous and you're anxious in your shoulders and you're looking around and you're wondering, you know, is my makeup right? Is my clothes right? Do I look okay on camera? You know, do I have green seaweed in my teeth? But when you take time to settle, and just as I say that, imagine it's an exhale into an aligned place in body, soul, and spirit, which I call soulation. You vibrate. Now, it's interesting. Another little scientific fact is there is a heart rate variability. And so when you're nervous, your heart's super, super fast and it doesn't vary like a little hummingbird. But when you're embodied and you inhale, you exhale, your heart calms and it may raise and it may come back down. That variability is a sign of being embodied. So it's an understanding. And sometimes it takes time just to grow into that understanding and the realization that it's not a head job. It's a mind, heart, and body job.
So that's interesting, because if you can understand it in a different way, well, that'll just change the whole perspective on that whole worthiness thing. Because I think a lot of women struggle in different aspects with that worthiness. I hear that coming up in a lot of conversations, you know, and not being enough, not being worthy. You know, it's so interesting, and with their stories or whatever. And, you know, my hope here, you know, with our Being Brave tour too, is it's not just that you matter, it's that you are worth celebrating. You know, and that is that vibration. You're taking it to that other vibration. And just as I'm saying that, I'm feeling it. I'm almost getting like little tingles. It's like, yeah, let's celebrate. And it brings you to a different thing. So if we could have a different wording around that word worthiness and understand that frequency. And I think, and you talk about too, to raise that vibration of the emotion around it.
That's right. And I'm not talking about a hyper, oh, I'm so excited, I'm worthy. And it's a calming, it's an essence. It is like being in a river and just floating in the very being of your soul. So yes, when I say raise the vibration, the emotional vibration, I don't mean hyperactivity.
Right.
So, and I want to clarify that, because sometimes we can be a very somber, quiet, soulful, and be vibrating high.
Yes. And I think you talk about here, it feels like the grounded calm of your belly. When you trust your intuition. And I love that, because yeah, I can just feel that calm. But I had an instance the other day where I was walking in the grocery store, and I just felt like aligned with myself. I was in something that I felt good in. I mean, my hair was just in a ponytail. I wasn't all made up or anything like that, but I felt that grounded. I felt like I was in my intuition. I was kind of embodied in myself, and I was just walking. I could tell I was walking confidently. This one lady just stared at me. And I thought, oh, do I know her? And she goes, oh, you just look so gorgeous. And I mean, I was just all, you know, at the grocery store. But I felt, oh, you know what? She could tell that I felt good about myself.
Yeah. It's a beautiful story. And I think when I think about that, I also think about that's why maybe we wear makeup or choose our clothes. Or, the other day when I was doing something, I had false eyelashes. It was just something I felt, an essence. It wasn't about to prove anything. It
Right.
wasn't about pleasing anybody. It was just an expression. Somebody mentioned my nose ring the other day. Wow, that's beautiful. And why did you do that? It's a symbol. And that's tokens and spirit animals and jewelry and peacock earrings and altars and community. All of it is to enhance and imagine what happens when we vibrate in unity with a tribe of women. And it's not that we become their vibration, is that our vibration intertwines. It's like that heart variability, and we intertwine, and the explosion of impact becomes so real when each woman vibrates in her essence, walking into the grocery store, and you just know. And
Yeah.
when I mean, I get tingles. It vibrates. It's an aura that used to be a new age concept, but now we know people literally have auras.
Yeah. So that energy, and that's I think what I could as soon as that lady said, something to me, I kept walking, and it made me feel so good. First of all, that she said something so kind, but then I also noticed as I walked, there was other people looking at me, and I thought, is there something, something around me today? It was that energy that I was giving off, and that positive energy, and really just I felt good. Kind of that aligned place, if you will. So I think sometimes, too, if we think back on a time when we felt this, what we're talking about, this frequency, knowing that it can be again.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of walk us through this a little bit. So, maybe it's a woman who isn't feeling worthy. Or maybe, how could she go from point here to here? How does she kind of walk through that a little bit?
Well, if you were working with me, one of the things that we might do is really do a somatic exercise where you do remember a time where you felt truly worthy. And it could have been because of an accomplishment or something somebody said to you. But in just going to that moment where you truly felt that fullness of who you are as a person, that you belong, that what you were doing was aligned, and embody that. And then maybe move to a moment where you feel somewhat intimidated, inadequate, feeling like you don't belong here. Why were you invited to be on this podcast, for example? And then realize that we have the ability to move from one to the other with a breath.
Mm. Oh.
And just imagine, and then just moving and coming back into alignment with the breath. But I also used a word earlier, and that's discipline. Now, it can be considered a naughty word, but it's the ability to make decided choices that will give your body an opportunity to align. Now, that might be in morning, quiet times, a walk in nature, a few minutes breathing, a few minutes listening to an inspirational book, a song, a dance, something that allows you, that you choose. And there's no right or wrong, but what do you choose, and what will you commit to so that you can stay in a place of alignment? And then one other small practice that you develop. So when you sense that you've moved out of the frequency of worthiness into feeling maybe inadequate, what practice? Sometimes it's jewelry, a necklace. You reach up and you just grab it. Take a deep breath. Maybe it's some peacock earrings. You reach up and you just pet them, and oh yeah, there I am. I've come home to myself. And then it's a practice of moving in and out of homeostasis of worthiness. It's not a once and done thing, because life always will throw challenges that make us question. You move into your
Mhm.
midlife and all of a sudden there's wrinkles and there's a little pooch that wasn't there when once upon a time you were this buff woman maybe. It's there's always something to challenge it. So come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. And you talk about too here, I just love this little thing that you wrote,
Thank you.
about worthiness moves through your choices, your tone, your boundaries, your presence. You can feel when someone carries worthiness. They don't need to convince anyone, which is a really big point there. They don't need to control how others perceive them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to be louder or seek approval. Energy speaks before they do. That really touched me. That energy speaks before they do, and I think that's what I experienced the other day. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
hold on to that little experience because that I mean I was walking taller. I thought, oh,
Beautiful.
you
And when
know,
you notice those moments, then and it's good to contemplate what was different. How
mm,
did I arrive at that place? What shifted in me that facilitated that vibration, that frequency? And then it's something that you begin to incorporate into your life more and more. And it becomes pretty soon it's almost like a gentle weave. It's no longer ping-ponging here and there. It's this gentle weave. And I it's like like I said earlier, floating down a river. And I use that analogy because in the summer, at my house, we start and we float down the river, and I just think about how easeful it is. But every once in a while we'll hear these little rapids, and then you feel that tension, and then something, you just ease right back down the river. And so that's why I keep using that analogy. Plus nature is just, to me, it is truly my drug of choice.
yes, yes. I love getting out on my bike because it just makes me feel so
Mhm.
playful and I feel so youthful. But yeah, as you're talking about that, one of the things that I think when I'm remembering about being in that grocery store, I was walking really tall. And I was thinking to myself how good my body is feeling because I've been working out more. I'm
Mhm.
stronger than I used to be. So
Mhm.
I was feeling really, that my posture was good. And so I was walking with confidence.
Mhm.
And that, produces that energy too as you're walking. And you talk about that, about nourishing your physical body.
Yes.
And then you talk about nourishing your nervous system. What does that look like?
Well, what we've been talking a lot, nourishing your nervous system is giving the opportunity for your vagal response, which is your fight or flight system, to regulate. And I guess when I think about frequency, I also think about regulation, regulating the body, and especially the nervous system, especially the vagal system, which is, now we could get into another science lesson, but basically it's that nerve throughout the whole body. It's incorporated with fascia, and the fascia is through the whole body, which is fluid with hyaluronic acid, which is water, which is our body's water. It's all sensitive to vibration and frequency. So when I talk about that, uh, coming back to that place of worthiness, it's a regulation. It's with the breath. It's with the small shifts and choices. And it's interesting because you said you felt more worthy. Your vibration was high because you've been working out. Now, the thing is, I know it's not performative for you. It is something that's very aligned for you because I know you well enough.
Mhm.
It's a choice you made not to prove anything to
Yeah,
anybody, but because it feels so darn good in your body.
yeah.
And when you eat right and you don't drink too much alcohol and you don't feel stuffed all the time, those are things that you notice in your body. And when you align with it, it contributes to the frequency. It's not because you have to eat right and there's always another guru out there to tell you what that means. But your body's so intelligent, it can tell you exactly what it means if you slow down enough to listen. So these are all choices. Nourishing doesn't happen by osmosis. You don't sit there and get nourished. You have
Right.
to make a choice, right?
You have to make a choice.
So yes, and so it is about choices, but it's choices from a place that is aligned with your very essence, your very desire, the things that matter to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and if we stop and just take a moment sometimes too to see what does matter to us. I've had to do that several times as walking through some of these really difficult transitions. And even as I go through new ones, I even sat the other morning, I said, what really matters to me? Because every once in a while I can have a little pity party. I used to have all these things and whatever. And then I really have to stop myself, whether it's a gratitude or whatever, but and I think, what does really matter to me? If I get down to it, it's seeing my granddaughter, it's going out biking, it's, doing my dance class, having good relationships with some girlfriends or, whatever that looks like. And so, just stopping and going, yeah, that is, and that I have never equated kind of that with worthiness, to be quite honest. I think the way that you're putting a look at this is taking us out of our head. And what people say, oh, worthiness is, you got to check all these boxes to be worthy, or, what somebody else thought, living to the expectations of somebody else, what they thought your worthiness was, or, all these things we put upon ourselves. But taking it out of our head and bringing it back, like you said, throughout our body, and not just being up here, letting it swirl all the time. And you talked too about, those choices about choosing intuition instead of fear, honoring your emotions instead of suppressing them. That's a big one for me, to be honest. I don't know if anybody else, girls, raise your I relate button, and tell us, but yeah, suppressing, because sometimes I feel like, okay, we're supposed to be happy, we're supposed to be this, like we're dictated what emotions we should have or not have, especially a lot of women in corporate America, and they don't get to express emotions.
Well, that's a challenge, because there is an appropriate time to express emotions, an appropriate way. And being a woman of integrity, I don't want to just be vomiting emotion all over people.
Right.
It's not in alignment with who I want to be anyway. So what does it look like to honor our emotions? And emotions do have vibrations, grief, sadness, they're a lower vibration. That's a fact. Joy, gratitude, it's all they're raised vibrations. So how do we work through? Well, it's not by spiritual bypassing, and that's kind of what you were alluding to. Yeah. And it's one of the things that people that are spiritual, people that are religious, they tend to spiritually bypass things. Oh, it'll be okay. Oh, God's got it under control. Que sera, sera. Hey, it all will be well. Meanwhile, their gut is just churning. Yeah. So it does mean honoring those emotions. Yes. And I don't know that there's a magic pill, but time and space to let that be. And I woke up the other morning and I just felt, I'll say my vibration was low, but I was feeling some malaise, some undiagnosed sadness, some grief, a term that we'll talk about maybe another time, but a term called erotic grief, where we grieve things that might have been, but they're not. But what it took is just a moment, and I have a couple meditations, and I put on a meditation, and it spoke to me, and the tears just came, and I just allowed the emotion to work through my body. Yeah. I didn't try to justify it. I didn't try to make it okay or not okay. It just was, but I had to give it space.
Yeah. I think you said a couple really key things, and these are some of the things that growing up, I did not do. I had like happy, sad, and, angry maybe that I expressed, and really couldn't name a lot of other emotions. And, but I think that the important couple things that I heard you say was honoring. I love that. Honoring it and giving it space and at the appropriate time. I often drive in my car, and like I'll purposely choose a song that I know will bring up some emotion. It's like it's giving myself permission to go, or yell and scream or cry or whatever, and just kind of just letting it be.
Yes.
And like you said, not judging the emotion, whether it be right or wrong or anything, but just giving it that space. I love that.
There's so many good movies for that. Beaches, all the movies, the girl flicks that we can sit and just cry together. I'm addicted. I'll use the word addicted to Call the Midwife, and nothing like a good birth to get me crying,
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. So what other things come up around this that you would like ladies to know about the frequency?
Is honoring what you really want. And I'm listening to the book by Michael McConaughey, Green Lights. And he goes through the book, and then he'll say something, note to self, and then he'll have a profundity. And the other day I was listening, and he said, note to self, is this really what I want to be doing?
Oh.
And when you are doing what you really don't want most of the time. And I was thinking about this morning, as women, we have responsibilities. We're managing homes, and we're, either we're in a relationship or we were in a relationship, and that comes with a level of responsibility. And responsibility, yes, we have responsibilities. But when it comes to deciding what do you really want, again, you can almost feel it in your body when you say it. When you have responsibility, you rise. You rise to the responsibility. I have a husband with dementia. It is part of my responsibility to manage his care. Do I really want to? Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. Mm-hmm. But there are many things I have choices about. I can really ask, do I want to do this? And when I say it, it's like, if there's hesitation, I'm just going to say no.
No.
And so it's, again, a gentle weave. And so if we accept, we're moms, we're not going to be responsible, but some days we don't want to wake up every morning at 6:30 and get the kids out the door and fight with them one more time to get their shoes on, and somebody with dementia, I don't want to fight with them one more time to have to take a shower, but it's my responsibility. And so, but then I get to choose, do I really want to go out with my girlfriends tonight? Yeah. And sometimes it's, no, I'm kind of tired.
Yeah.
So honoring the times where you really can choose to want to.
Yeah.
And just that will shift your energy and bring more life when you operate from that place.
Yeah, the good point. So yes, and operating from that place of where you really want to be spending your time. I know I've been looking at a lot of different things, because we tend to be busy and everything. And I finally said, I just need a weekend off. I just need some time. I need, time for me. And so I love that. So you talk about a daily practice. And can you kind of tell us about that?
I've talked a little bit about that earlier, so I don't want to belabor, but I encourage each person to find time, especially in the morning, ideally morning and evening, where you truly reset your nervous system, reset your heart, mind, body. And then that can be in moments, and it can be in a expansive time, whatever it allows. But don't let the idea that, well, I don't have an hour to meditate, I don't have an hour to read, I don't have an hour to pray, I don't have an hour to exercise, I don't have an hour to prep my meals. No, it doesn't have to be that. It's in the moments. And some days you get to do one thing, and some days It's many things, but choose something. Again, the choice. Decide that you will make that morning time. And then ideally an evening time. And anchoring your morning and evening. And it can incorporate a lot of things. For me right now, getting a piece of the sunrise really means a lot to me. Walking my dog in the morning, a meditation. I'm reading a couple of books, one that I underline, write in the book, and another one I take notes on. So there's certain things I really like to do. I love to write. So in order for me to get to do the things I really want to do, I have to make the choice to get up earlier. That's just what I choose to do. And so, and there's training. Your body does respond to choices, believe it or not. Remember when 8 pounds for me was, I'm going to do it. And now I can do 20 with barely a sweat. So, but those were choices. Was it easy at first? No. And ease in body, yes. Sometimes not so easeful in choice. Sometimes it takes a little bit more effort to pedal that bike uphill, but I'm going to make it up the hill. And all of a sudden you're gliding, and then it is easeful. Yeah. So don't mistake making choices to be disciplined with the ease of the frequency and emotional regulation in your body. Yeah. You can be easeful in your body and still do hard things.
Yes. Isn't that lovely? Yes. And you talked about, before we close out here, I would just like to ask a question to the ladies that are listening. And you talked about what that worthiness feels like to you. You said about that calm, that grounded, that flow. And for me, I think too, there's a sense of calm. This kind of peace, if you will, with a little tingle of, just a little tingle there that kind of makes you smile.
Yeah.
And so I would love to hear the ladies, what they think too. What does, when you feel really worthy, when you're in that space, when you're really embodying that worthiness, what does that feel like?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sharon, as we close out, is there anything you'd like to leave with the ladies? Excuse me.
Well, worthiness is a frequency. Frequency rises when we are in alignment with our own souls, when we honor our own heart song, when we live in soulation, aligned in body, mind, and spirit. Frequency raises. Our worthiness, our sense of worthiness raises because it's born out of alignment, not performance, not people pleasing, not doing the things that you absolutely don't want to do, but doing the things that light you up. It comes from acceptance. And I was thinking about this earlier. It comes from accepting what was, learning and embracing it for now, and integrating the wisdom and knowledge so that you can be the full expression of all that you're designed to be and all the impact you're here. You're here to have impact. You're going to have an impact. So when you're aligned and your frequency is going to be high, you get to have the impact that feels soulful, that makes a difference, that helps others vibrate at the highest good.
Yes. Because don't you notice when you're around somebody that you see as kind of in that confidence, that worthiness of, of who they are. I mean, you can kind of tell when somebody's got that great energy about them. I was at coffee yesterday with a gal. I said, "You have such great energy." And she's like, "Thanks," and it comes over to you and you can just like feel it. And it's so great. So Sharon, thank you for coming and sharing. I think this is such an important topic, and I love this kind of look at it. I don't know that I've really ever looked at it this way, to be quite honest. But I love digging a little deeper and being curious about things and how we can walk forward and just, take that one brave step. So I just want to encourage the women to download. You can download the magazine. It's free. And you can subscribe to it. It's also free. But we'll give you a direct link right here in the comments. So you can download this and read this little resource that Sharon has provided. And she has her little link there if you would like to connect with her. And we'll put it in the show notes as well. And, just be curious about worthiness. What might it look like for you? How might you feel? Or what does it feel like right now? And how would you like it to feel? And what are the choices that you have to change that? It's one brave step, one woman, one brave step at a time. And we can do it together, ladies. You are not alone. We are all in this. We have all felt these things. You are not the only one, and we all have a story. So thank you for joining us, Sharon.
Yes, thank you for having me. What a joy.
Yeah. All right, ladies, we'll see you next time.